Hey, this is Andrew Norp, and welcome to A Fool's Errand, a podcast where we plan to fail, make mistakes, and learn 12 skills in 12 months. It's episode 7, week 3 of Constitution Month. Today I'm going to tell you about how I've been memorizing, my hopes, how my new schedule went, and just how much I love this project. Hey guys, thank you for coming out for our 7th episode. We're already at number 7, that's crazy. January, as I predicted, was a super fast month, but February has been even more so. I mean, whenever I'm working on a project with deadlines and goals and there's a lot to do every day, you'd think that my life would slow down because I'm busy, but no, it speeds the heck up. I'm going 1,000,000 miles an hour. It's basically the end of February tomorrow. But today is not the end of February. We still have, at date of recording, I think 10 days until the end of February. Let me look at the date. What's the date? Oh, we have less than 10 days. Like, we have only 8 days. February. Why do you have to be such a short month? I don't get it. Like, what's the thing with having some months be 31 days and some months be 28 days? Why don't we just divide the amount of days among the months as evenly as we can? But that's a side tangent. We're here today to talk about the Constitution, which I have been well, actually, that might be a good transition thing. I've been memorizing the Constitution, and I talked last week about how I really needed a schedule. So what that sound you may have just heard was one of my alarms going off telling me to switch what I'm doing. It just told me to stop reading and start watching videos about the Constitution. I'm not doing that right now because I'm recording. I need to schedule in recording. I don't yet. I need to have that a set out block in the day. But last week I talked about why I was afraid of making a schedule, what my difficulties with schedules were, and I worked real hard and I thought about it, and eventually I was able to make a schedule and mostly just change my mentality towards schedules that I think is working, and has worked great for the past week. But basically I was afraid of giving up my liberty to schedules, but I think that I was thinking about it, and by scheduling I'd have more liberty, because before I was just rushing around and I couldn't be on break when I wanted to because I had to be doing work, and I wasn't working when I was wanting to because I was watching a YouTube video or talking to someone or whatever, texting. So I needed to make a schedule to actually kind of in a way give me more liberty. Also, I have a lot of things I want to do. Every day I want to do a ton of different things, and I can't do all of those things unless I have a schedule because I'm just not organized enough. I also had to accept that maybe one of the reasons I was having a super hard time doing everything every day is because I had too much scheduled for every day. So I had to cut a couple things, make a couple things that were daily things, only weekly things. I made a couple D&D games that were a part of bi-weekly instead of weekly. I also realized that another problem I had with the schedules was that I was constantly coming up with excuses why right now would be better to be doing something else. And sometimes I am right. It is better to be doing another thing. But really, it is better to show myself that I can follow the schedule and will follow the schedule. Even if there might, at that very moment, it might be a little better to focus on a different thing. Because then I'll have, I'll be able to, if I'm just letting the schedule decide for me, then it's a lot less work on my part and I'm able to do a lot more. And in the long run, it'll be better. I also realized one of my problems with schedules, and I might write a schedule down in a notebook, to check it off the list. And I'll write it down. I'll be super happy about it, but I just won't pick up the journal. It's too much work. My brain just forgets. It's too much mental work not to do it, right? Or I might have reminders on my phone, but the thing was with reminders, I can go blind. I can go reminder blind in a day, where if there's a reminder on my home screen, I can have 10 billion, and as soon as I get used to having 10 billion reminders on my home screen, I do not see reminders anymore. I've had this problem in the past with using reminders as a schedule, so I decided to use the most barbaric of means, and that was just literal alarms. The alarm app on iPhones has the ability to name alarms and then have them repeat on certain days. So I came up with this schedule where certain days were had certain blocks, almost every day I have the same morning schedule. A lot of days I have different afternoon schedules. Some days I have different morning schedules, and I just set alarms that repeated on all the right days. So whenever it's time, my phone will beep at me. It'll make a sound until I either turn off the alarm or snooze the alarm. And even when it's on silent mode, the alarm will go off. The only way the alarm will not go off is if I turn off my phone, the permanent turn off where you press. I've done that 6 times in my life. So I'm going to notice, it's going to tell me, I can't forget. I can't just be just a second and stop it, because I'll just hit snooze because that's the largest button. The stop button's almost hard to get to. It's so small. I wasn't gonna forget if I did it. It was gonna be loud. I was gonna have to notice it. And I decided to this week have an experiment where I just handed over my free will to the thing. And I was very specific about it. There were a couple ones that were more broad. For example, my 9 o'clock in the morning one, it is written to shorten. If you've already have everything you need shortened, like in the Constitution, then to review yesterday's stuff. And if you review yesterday's stuff and you still have extra time, it is to attach ideas to places. If you already have ideas attached to places, then you just get to memorizing. So it's kind of like if you already have a task done, then what's the point of doing it again? Just do the next task in that day. So I handed my liberty over to it, and it was almost easy. I never had to think, should I be doing this right now? Would there be a better thing to be doing with my time? Because no, the schedule told me that's what I'm doing. The alarm went off. And if I was like halfway through a task and I wanted to finish it, if the alarm went off, I would just have to drop it right then and there and resume tomorrow or whatever. Which was really nice. I also have like peremptory, like in some of the things are alarms before, like 5 minutes before, almost as like a warning, like, you need to get done in 5 minutes, like wrap whatever you're doing up. Like one of my scheduled items is to go into town to attach ideas to places, like to walk around and be like, that house is this idea. And 15 minutes before I need to be back at the house to do stuff, it'll give me an alarm to start going back to the house. It has been working great. I mean, there have, of course, been exceptions to that. There have been moments where, like, people in my life, like, want to talk to me or want my help with something, and I'll have to make, like, a snap judgment about, like, what level of importance is this? Because I don't want to put my schedule above everyone else's lives, right? If, like, someone in my family really needs my help or, like, you know, there is things above whatever I'm doing at that moment. But obviously, I can't every time a friend wants to talk or every time my parents might want me to help with something, I can't. So I have to, like, decide this level almost. So I've been working on that, trying to figure out where that exactly is. So there's a couple times where I went off it to, like, help my family or, something like that. But besides that, I've been sticking to it, and it's been working. I mean, I am memorizing. I looked at the thing again. Because of the way my schedule works, I hadn't factored this in. Mondays, I can't memorize at all because I'm doing podcast stuff. And I hadn't memorized on Friday because I hadn't had time last week. So that means that I'm going to have to memorize 6 things instead of just 3.5 things a day. But I've been memorizing 6 sections a day, and it's been working fine. I do have a couple audio recordings from this week. Maybe we can jump right into those.
Back in town, associating ideas. Got a Dr. Pepper. It's beautiful and sunny this time, so I'm ready to go.
I really liked that. I set going into town at 2 o'clock every day. Well, no, was it 1 o'clock? 1 o'clock every day. And the excellent part about that was I kind of hit I normally hit kind of the slump at like 1 or 2 o'clock, maybe because you're like, I'm close to the end, but I'm not quite there. I still have plenty of things to do. I'm tired. My most effective time is the morning. So when I hit that 1 o'clock going into town, that active movement, that ability to walk around a pretty place, to maybe even get like something to drink or eat while I'm there, was really helpful. And then also was a really fun way to memorize. I've talked about this before, but the strategy for memorizing the Constitution I'm using, which is to attach it to places, makes memorizing like 10 times more fun because you feel like almost like you're on a walk even when you're alone, like even when you're not, even when you're like in your room just like going through it. And it's absurd. It makes me feel like a crazy person to like sit down and close my eyes and walk through a town. But it works, and it's kind of fun because you have like these little tricks you can do. You're like, oh, this idea is associated with like the fact that building is green, and then you can. It's just this. It's like almost like feels more like a game than just like memorize. I got back from that, and I found an even happier surprise.
I am the only person in my house. I don't think you understand how rare this happens. I literally cannot remember the last time. Maybe I'm not. I'm gonna check to make sure I am, because I don't want to be disappointed again. Hello? Hey? Huh? It's just me. When you have 11 people in your family, this doesn't happen often, especially if they're all homeschooled and work from home. The only time we're all out is when we're all out together, or we're all out separately. Rarely am I just alone. So I can memorize the Constitution as loud as I want. We, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity, do ordain and establish this Constitution for the United States of America. Yeah, it's my house. I'm gonna play music out loud. We're gonna run around memorizing. Hey Alexa, play. Let's see what she plays. Oh yeah, some ELO. Let's go. Memorizing dance party.
You will not believe how rare. I cannot remember the last time I was home alone. Like literally, the time doesn't exist. I don't think it has ever occurred. My family's pretty tight. We partly because we traveled together, so we had to be. Partly because my parents are work from home and my family's homeschooled, so we're always together all the time, and we like it that way. But sometimes it's like the idea of like being in a space alone is rare or absurd, and I like that because I'm a very extroverted person. Like some people ask, like, you're homeschooled, don't you get lonely? It's like, get lonely? I'm surrounded by people all the time. It's kind of awesome. I sleep in a room with 3 of my brothers. It's like a party every night. But there sometimes like the idea of being in a space alone sounds awesome. It sounds like so like solo powerful, and it lasted like 30 minutes, but I gotta like play music loudly, run around the house. It was like that part in Home Alone, basically, where he jumps on his parents' bed like with the music on. It totally felt like that, and I did do some good memorizing. And that's the funny thing, as I mentioned earlier, how not knowing if it was 1 or 2 o'clock when I went into town, is that's the great thing about this schedule, is I don't even know my schedule. It just tells me what to do. Like I don't have the mental effort of having to remember when I'm doing things. It just happens to me, which is kind of great. I have a couple periods built in where I know I'm free, and I know when those are because like if I like want to do something that's outside of my schedule, that's where I'll put them. So I know where those blocks are, but for the rest of the time, I don't know. The schedule tells me what to do. I built it during like an hour, and now I show up almost. And that's the funny part about being the type of homeschooled I am. I make my own schedule. Unless I like intentionally go and get a job or go somewhere. So I'm so used to the burden of making and building my own schedule and managing my time. The idea of being back in a restrictive system which controls my schedule sounds kind of nice. I remember I went to public school. I've been a couple times, but I went for a month of middle school as this like fun little experiment to almost like write a paper on what middle school was like, but it was a video I made. But the great thing about middle school, I didn't like most of it, but one of the parts I did like is I just showed up and then the rest happened to me. Like I would just be shepherded around and I didn't really have to think about what I was doing, which I think is one of the great drawbacks of middle school and public schools. Like you're not really making decisions for yourself. And I love my liberty and my abilities to make my own decisions, but sometimes it's kind of nice to just be like herded through life, you know? But with this schedule, I have the best of both worlds. I don't have to make decisions in the moment, but I do control my life because I built the schedule and I have sections built in where I can even like have chill time just to do whatever I want. So I don't feel restricted, but I also don't feel like that constant pressure of having to make decisions. I think I heard once that like people who make really important decisions all the time get this thing called decision fatigue. And that's oftentimes why, like, you know, like the rich and powerful people like only have like one pair of clothes they don't have to decide in the morning, or oftentimes why like really rich and powerful people will make like weird, personal, really bad decisions. And you're like, why did you do that? You're really smart. And there's a theory that it's because you have like a limited amount of decision energy, and they're using it up by making really important decisions, whether they be like the president or a CEO or whatever. I think we can all apply that to our personal lives. I mean, I'm not like making decisions for the fate of our country, but I'm making a lot of decisions about my life on a day-to-day. And it's also been proven that the more options you have, oftentimes, the less happy you'll be with the thing you choose. I think, you know, variety is the spice of life. Options are great. Freedom is amazing. But there's ways to have freedom and also not have that decision fatigue. So I kind of tried to get that with the schedule. And so far, it's been working pretty well. It's been pretty tight. So yeah, like I said, I had to, when I was going through it, change a couple things up. I've spread some things out to give myself a little bit more air, a little bit more space to breathe. And I've also, my schedule isn't like constant effort. There's breaks. And I've tried to put, especially in the later parts of the day, lots more like easy tasks like reading or watching videos about this subject. So then it's less like a constant intensity, but I kind of like intensity where I can get it as long as it's not, you know, too much. But in some ways I've had more time with this schedule. Like I've been able to start writing again. On a previous episode, I mentioned that I broke down while writing a novel, and that's the last time I regularly wrote a novel. Since then, I've written plenty of short stories and a ton of stories for my Ghost Walk, but I haven't been able to regularly write a novel, and that's to be honest, my favorite form of writing. But I wrote it into my schedule. I put it in my schedule to write twice a week, and I've been writing twice a week, and it's been great. I've been loving it. I'm finally writing a bit again. I've been having tons of ideas for writing, and it's been really fun and a real great way to kind of wind down. And I use writing as a way to kind of express my thoughts and think out loud almost. So all in all, it's been pretty awesome. I have memorized all the way up to the Fifth Amendment. So I'm out of the original section of the Constitution. I'm in the Fifth Amendment, and gosh, has memorizing the amendments been easy, because the first 10 are the Bill of Rights, and I guess just by being an American with parents who care about me understanding my basic liberties as a human being, I already kind of knew all my rights, but I just didn't know what order they went in. But so that's been really easy and fun to memorize. I really like them. They're very pretty and very clear and definite. I totally think I'll be able to memorize the whole Constitution by the end of the month, and if something happens, I don't know, I get hit by a car and I end up in the hospital, so I can't do that. I've already learned 10 times more about the Constitution than I have in the rest of my life. I understand it so much better. I understand the framers and the founding fathers so much better, the American history, to see it connected to modern politics even, and history I've always known but never known, It's made me optimistic about the future months if I can keep the schedule that I have right now similar. And now that I see, last month, I kind of learned not to be terrified of failing. And this month, I've learned how to schedule my months well. And then maybe by the end of this, I'll be a superhuman. But next month, it's going to be a lot easier. I'm glad I kind of pushed February off, because I don't think I would have been able to do piano if I hadn't have learned what I've learned in this month. I wouldn't have had the time, because I wouldn't have known how to schedule it right. And I like scheduling. I've scheduled before, as I discussed previously, but this new strategy is working way better than anything I've ever used. And also, I'd kind of abandoned schedules for 9 months, or I had abandoned permanent schedules for 9 months. So I wasn't really I was kind of rusty on how to schedule and how to do it, because before, for my Ghost Walk and for kind of previous things, instead of doing schedules, I just had checklists and just you need to get these things done by the end of the day. Why it worked, I think, with my Ghost Walk is I couldn't really procrastinate, because if I didn't do the thing by the end of the day, my Ghost Walk would not happen by the end of the month. Whereas with the Constitution, it's harder for you to exactly see how much you need to do every day. So I was a little bit more I was able to kind of procrastinate a bit more. And that's one of the reasons I actually did the 1 month project. I'm doing this 12-month project where each skill is 1 month, right? Procrastinating's a lot harder when you have 1 month. I was thinking earlier this week, I'm maybe I should have done all of these things in 1 year, right? Just by the end of the year, I want to be this good at chess. All of these things, but spread them out so every day has a little bit of each. But maybe I think one of the reasons that wouldn't have worked is I would have been able to procrastinate more. I'm I got a whole year. I don't need to work right now. I don't need to do the chess. I can do that later. But by the end of the month, you haven't achieved half of the things. But when you only have 1 month remaining, the time starts ticking real fast. So you realize that you can't procrastinate. I'm still procrastinating in this month project, but I can only procrastinate for 2 hours, because if I do it any longer, I've hit my deadline for that day. Every day has a deadline that needs to be achieved, or the project will not occur, right? This is how many points I need to up my rating. This is how much of the Constitution I need to memorize. So it's a lot harder to procrastinate. It's not such a huge project, and I think I realize that in the future when I have huge projects, I need to split them down into real itty-bitty bite-sized pieces, which is, I think, something we're all kind of told, make measurable goals, but I think making them real small and real time specific, oh, you need to finish this by the end of the month, or you've lost, right? That is this month's purpose, is to do this part of the goal, or this week's purpose is to get this bite-sized thing, to kind of both so you don't procrastinate, also so you get little rewards along the way, right? I remember that's one of the things I didn't really like about writing novels, is I always felt there was this, the end of writing a novel was so far away, I never felt like I was achieving anything, because you write the novel, and then you edit the novel, and then you keep revising, and then you re-revise, and then you rewrite, and you don't even know when it's going to occur. Whereas with the Ghost Walk, it was real easy. I'm I did the thing, I'm one step closer, baby. It was that fun of achievement, and I finished the month, and I'm boom, did it. And I think if I want to make a big project like writing a novel, maybe a whole year-long project next year, I'm going to put it down into real bite-sized pieces so I can still feel that achievement. I won't be procrastinating. It's going to be working I'll be getting closer. Speaking of things I need to change, why don't we have our segment, How I Failed This Week? Welcome to How I Failed This Week, a segment we have every episode where I talk about the mistakes I made and what I learned from them and how I'm going to change it in our next couple weeks. Sometimes we make the same mistake in a couple weeks. I think our last 2 episodes, our mistake was kind of the same one. We have like a advancement on that mistake and one that I think we can all kind of relate to. And this week, I feel like I was getting distracted a little too easily. I followed my schedule pretty well, but oftentimes, like my hour of reading, for example, I would not do any other project besides reading, but a sibling might walk by, might have a conversation, I might reply to a text, I might get up and eat a snack, I was getting a little distracted from the main purpose. I was also doing this with watching videos and sometimes even memorizing. I still ended up memorizing the right amount every day, but like halfway through, I would like get distracted by like arguing with my brother about Dungeons and Dragons or like replying to a text or be like, oh, wouldn't that be an awesome writing idea? And like writing it down somewhere or whatever. So I wasn't able to focus on the thing as much, even though I was still doing it within the block of time, and still by the end of the block I had done enough. If I would have done it, been a little more focused, I wouldn't have had to devote as much time. I would have had more free time. So I think that on top of my scheduling, I'm going to try to maybe make like a spatial plan in future. I really like this. I've done this before, where certain tasks only occur in certain places. This has been proven to be really helpful, like psychologically. Like if you're having trouble sleeping, don't like read it while you're in bed, and don't like lay awake in bed. Don't like sit at your bed. Only be in your bed when you're sleeping. So when you lay down in bed at night, your brain's like, it's sleeping time, and it just totally gets it, and you go right to sleep. But I think this can be totally used in other parts of life, and I've heard other people talking about this. CGP Grey has a great video on this called Spaceship U. I'll put a link in the description, but it's a thing I've used for a long time now, and you put projects and activities are in certain places, but also it's like a psychological trigger, so your brain is just kind of more in that mode. Like if you're at your writing desk, your brain is like doing writing things, but then also you don't want to kind of like, I don't know what the word, like corrupt the space. So like I remember about a year ago, I had this writing desk and it worked great. I only wrote at it, did nothing else, couldn't watch videos, couldn't text people. I was at my writing desk. I wrote. I made a really nice space to be in. I liked being there. So sometimes I just wanted to sit there. So I would just come up with an excuse to write. But if I ever got distracted, I'd have to get up and leave. If I wanted to go watch a YouTube video, I'd have to get up and go downstairs. And because of that, distractions weren't quite as effective because you couldn't just, I'll just watch one video real quick, because you click on the video and you're like, I should probably stand up and then walk downstairs. And by the time you were downstairs, you'd realize that you should probably get back to writing. Or just the idea of putting in the effort of getting to downstairs to watch the video made it so like you didn't even want to go do it. You wanted just to keep writing. I think I may have talked about this before. I really like this idea and I've used it a lot, as I said. And also it even makes your break times better, because you're not like thinking like, should I be working right now? Like, should I be working here? It's like, no, you're sitting on the couch. This is where you watch videos. Like, you don't write here. You never write on the couch. That's what this is for. And though, once again, it does feel like kind of like a restriction of liberty to never be able to write on the couch or whatever, it really helps you kind of compartmentalize these ideas and get more things done. So I'm thinking maybe I have like a writing chair. While we're sitting in that chair, we are writing, and during our hour of chess, we must be sitting at that. Sorry, during that our scheduled hour of writing, we must be sitting in that writing chair. We have our or a reading chair, or like a memorizing desk, or a memorizing walk, because normally I'm walking in circles. Like seriously, I've been getting more steps in this week than like most of my life. I'm just walking in a circle in my room for hours. I am a pacer. Like, oh my goodness, if I look, I have the Steps app on my phone. And I know I brought this a lot up this episode, so I mean, if I didn't look nerdy enough for memorizing the Constitution, I really drove it home. But I played Dungeons and Dragons. Oh, look, another reminder to tell me to switch the activity I'm doing. Oh, it's telling me to eat dinner. But I play Dungeons and Dragons, and I do that over Discord. And normally the game's like 4 hours. And most of the game, I have my headphones in while I'm playing. I'm just walking in a circle in my room. And I've looked at my app. I have walked 5 miles never leaving my bedroom while playing Dungeons and Dragons. It's absurd. And I've been doing that with the Constitution too, so I've been walking a ton. But back to the subject. What was the subject? This is such high quality podcast. Aren't you glad you get to come out here and hear the super organized, high quality teaching event? Oh yeah, we were talking about spaces. So I think I'm going to come up with spaces to do my activities in to not get distracted. I'm going to be honest here. My family is moving next week. We are moving out of my current house so we can remodel it into a larger home because we're remodeling my home into an even larger home. I'm living in a teeny little baby house right now, at least for my family size. There's 10 people in my family. We have 5 total rooms. We are moving to a house with 10 total rooms, so that'll be nice. And it also means my space strategy would work better. Like, when I've been living in this house, it's been actually hard to do a space strategy because I'm like, I have 5 spaces to be in. That's total. And some of them are my siblings or my parents' bedrooms, so I have like 3 spaces to be in. So I think, though, with using this newer house, I'll be able to have more spaces to set ideas in. And I've also been using my local town for that. Like, I walk into town to do things, and that's nice. And I'll still be able to walk into town. I'll still be within walking distance. So I'm going to keep doing that. Maybe put some places in town like this is where you do this activity. So yeah, I'm going to try that. I'll report back next week, tell you how it went. If you're having trouble getting distracted or focusing or even just doing things, it's really fun. It works great. I would advise watching that CGP Grey video or maybe listen to his podcast Cortex where he talks about that a lot. Thank you guys so much for listening to this episode. If you liked it, it would be great if you could leave a review. If you're listening to this on YouTube, sorry that we are 1 week behind, but it would be great if you could leave a comment and like the video, hit subscribe. And if you this is your first episode, sorry if that was confusing. You can go back to the trailer and probably hear more. You can subscribe on wherever you get your podcasts as well. An episode will turn up hopefully every Monday. Normally, to be honest, it's normally like Tuesday, though. I hope you guys come back next week to hear. I think by next week, next week will be my last day. It'll be like my last real day. I got 1 week, so you come back next week and hear me having finished memorizing the Constitution, probably? I literally have exactly 1 work week. So next episode, it's gonna be the end. You're gonna hear if I memorized the Constitution and how much I did. For the segment after the end of the music, I'm gonna keep it there, and I've decided that the way I'm memorizing it was just like ideas, but I want to turn those ideas into something more useful. So I'm going to say it like I'm teaching a lesson on it, almost like I'm teaching someone. It won't be a very good lesson because I haven't trained how to teach it, but just because that'll be a better way for me to understand the ideas as if I'm teaching someone else them. So and then it'll even help me learn because I'll be like, I don't even know how to teach that. I should probably learn it better. So that's what I'll be doing. And then our last episode will have a more comprehensive, probably a little better said explanation and lesson on the Constitution, going through each idea and every clause and every section and article. So yeah, hope you guys come back next week and hear that. Thank you guys so much for listening. As always, love y'all. Keep failing. Andrew of the future here to tell you that my promised lesson here at the end is not actually going to be here because it turns out to take a lot longer to do if I'm giving a full lesson, not just reciting the ideas. It's 40 minutes of content, and I don't know if y'all want to have just 40 extra minutes on your podcast that you're probably not going to listen to, so I'm not putting it in. But that will be in the next episode. In our final episode, I will have a section which hopefully will at least be interesting and teach you something, as well as be a way to show what I have learned and give me a deadline to learn something, give me an ideal outcome. So yeah, there's nothing here. Stop listening to the podcast. This is the end. Leave. Okay, bye. That's what the end of all my voicemails sound like.